right, welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Sam Wagers here with Shannon Eno and John Cummins. We are without Dan once again. He's taking a short break. He'll be back. Maybe not next time, but maybe by next month. I think he's planning on being back to host the show. And we all miss Dan, but we look forward to his return. But yeah. Obviously he's still around too. You can hop in our Discord and talk to Dan at any time.
He didn't vanish.
He didn't disappear. No, he's still around. He's just not recording with us tonight.
He's playing Federation Force.
Yeah, he finally owns Federation Force. So yeah. And yeah, that's a great place to chat with people about all kinds of games, new and old. Whatever you've picked up recently. And RetroLogic is, of course, not just a podcast. It is a whole community of retro gamers. We have a very active and friendly Discord, giveaways, contests, and our whole family of retro podcasts. And we'll give you a brief update on those. But first, Shannon, John, anything fun happen this last couple weeks?
I mean, I'm playing Zelda every chance I get.
Yeah, new Zelda came out. That's always a big deal.
Yep.
I think that's what everyone's doing.
Yeah. I
did have one retro pickup. Sorry about that. Awkward pause. I did have one other retro pickup, which they've been a little bit more spaced out. I've slowed down, but I got a new TurboGrafx game, actually. This is Gomala Speed for the TurboGrafx 16. Well, I guess it actually says PC Engine, because this one didn't release in North America, but I found somebody in Canada selling it on eBay. The game's all in English, and it's not a text-heavy game anyway. Manual's all in Japanese. This is the only complete in-box TurboGrafx game I own. All the rest of mine are loose.
Completing
they all
case
came in the same lot. Yep, case. It does have it's just the insert, but it does have a little manual there.
I think that the
interesting little game.
Some of them had cardboard boxes over, like they came in a cardboard box and the case was inside.
Yeah, it's like a CD jewel case, but obviously it's got the
it's got a plastic arm that holds the U card in.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting little game. It's kind of it's very Centipede like, but instead of just you are still trying to like grab food, but you eat it by encircling it completely. So you actually do want to sort of run into yourself. That's nice. How you eliminate enemies too. You have to stun them first. You have like a time bomb. It takes some getting used to too, because the bomb always places at your tail, which I keep thinking it's going to place at the head. And as you get longer, that's a big difference.
Harder it might be harder to tell where your head and your tail are at.
Yeah. But also, like, your head is the real, like, vulnerable section. If an enemy touches the body, it just splits it back off, and you have to, like, regather your pieces.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's very interesting. Kind of surprisingly hard game, but I only made it to, like, level 6. Very unique, I would say. So it's just one of those that, only on the PC Engine. So
and not on the Mini.
Where it's stuck. Yeah, not on the Mini, not on... I don't think this was even on, like, Wii Virtual Console back in the day or nothing. So, yeah, I'm glad I picked it up when I did.
Excellent.
Shannon, have you picked anything up that's unique?
Unique? No, not really. At least not that I could think of. There's just so many games coming out that I've kind of tried to put a little bit of a pause on buying much retro. I just picked up. So I picked up Plucky Squire, and then I'm about halfway through that, and then paused that for Zelda. But with Dragon Quest 3 coming out soon. Like, that's my next big one that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm ready for that to come out now.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, been kind of a slow couple weeks as far as purchases, retro purchases go.
Yeah, I traded for a Saturn, but it's as I feared. Like, I don't want to pull the trigger on too many games because they're pretty high. The ones that I want to get.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the Saturn too. I'm holding out for like a Saturn Mini, or there's always going to be a couple games that just don't make it, but you know, that's probably the preferred way to experience that for me at this point.
And I bought a little 10-inch color CRT from like 1981 it's charming, but it's not like super crisp picture, but it's kind of funny. It was the only TV I really had that had the antenna inputs that were the screws, and not like an actual like coax. So it was at this point in time, it was really what I had readily available. So that's what I've been playing my Saturn on.
Man, I remember hooking up both the Atari 2600 and the original Nintendo, having to have the little like adapter thing to screw it in behind the, in those little screws with the antenna.
Yeah, growing up, I had a bunch, but then my friends would come over, and I had an NES, and my friend had a Genesis, and then I also had my Atari 2600, and like whenever he would come over, we would just add his on to the link of like RF adapters that are, right. I'm surprised it like doesn't get so heavy it breaks it off the back of the TV, but it's just because all of them always have like where you could just screw your antenna into the bottom, so you could just keep linking them together.
Right.
Probably degrading your picture quality over, by the time you're the third console going through the link, but back then it didn't matter.
Nope.
Picture, the fidelity of the picture wasn't as important.
Was already pretty weak.
Yeah, it was already pretty bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I got to test out my ColecoVision 2 that I got at a yard sale a little while ago, and I also have I think it's also made by Coleco, but it's I think it's like called Ranger Star, or it's a shooting. It's a light gun game. Comes with 2 paddles. I think it also has like Pong and like a few other things on it, but it works. I got to test it out too, so it was nice.
Awesome. Well, as for what's going on in the whole RetroLogic family of podcasts, RetroGroove is back. So if you're not up to date, they've already got 2 episodes out for season. I think it's season 4. Season 4.
I think that sounds right.
Last one was a Jimmy Eat World album. So if you're into music, obviously RetroGroove is a wonderful podcast done by Adam and Liam. So yeah, check that out if you're not already listening, or if you didn't realize that their break is over and they're back with a vengeance. FilmLogic is also still continuing. I believe their last episode was the unnecessary sequels. So you can find that on the website, or they're on Spotify now as well, I believe. Any updates as far as On Topic Retro or
not yet. I think RetroGroove beat me back from hiatus. I need to stop being lazy and get back to it. I've put it off long enough.
I
had scheduled to record an episode and it just kept falling through, and I think I lost Chris. I think he hopped out of our group even. We
might be able to get him back in.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can get him back in to do it. Oh man. Yeah, no, it's you do this for so long, and it's I had been doing that show for 3 years, and it's hard to get both of them going at the same time. Again, I think after I took a few weeks off, I I was like, man, this is kind of nice only doing one show for a little bit, but I need to get back to it. It's definitely at least need to finish out the Zelda series and start planning out something else.
Yeah.
So, look forward to that.
Don't do that. We start talking about Zelda on the main show all the time.
Yeah, I know, right? We let that one slide, so now we got to
get the Zelda out somewhere.
That's right. Got a Zelda.
For my part, I've just been continuing with the Battle Network streams. So 5 games down now, although I'm not all the way done with Battle Network 5. Actually, more than 5 games. I played all the spin-offs. So that's 8 games down, I believe, if you're keeping score. But I'll probably be doing Battle Network 5 post-game the next couple streams. But then it's just 6, Battle Network 6, and that's the last one. And so, I'm still looking for somebody to come on the show and let me just dump all of my thoughts on Battle Network because
we'll just have to do a Battle Network.
I played everything, almost everything. A Battle Network show is going to happen one way or another, but it would probably be good to find a guest who has played all these games.
Probably, equally as knowledgeable. I don't even think that Marty he doesn't play those, right? He's just standard Mega Man.
Remember him talking on the show when the collection came out about playing at least the first one. I don't know if he followed up and played the rest. I tried to explain to him that the first one is
probably not
kind of the worst, but there's a lot vying for attention. I know these are a time sink for sure. Depends how you look at it, though. I mean, the collection as a package is a lot of video game.
He's still playing the Pixel collection of Final Fantasy, I think. So you might not have to peel him off of that and see if he can.
That's a lot too.
Yeah,
that is a lot too. I still haven't got around to those. I haven't either. I bought 5 on Steam because 5 was one I never played, and I started it but didn't get that far. So
I think I bought.
I said I was not going to buy another one until I finished 5.
Yeah, I think I bought 1, 4, and 6. And I haven't beaten any of them.
You bought all the American Final Fantasies?
Yeah, I bought 5 because I love 4 and 6 and figured that 5 is likely to be one I would like because of it coming in between them.
I actually enjoy 5. I know some people don't like the job system, but
I like job systems most of the time, so...
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Well, with that said, let's get into some Prices Retro.
Let's do it.
You guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right, it's that time of the show. It's time to play The Price is Retro, and here is how we play. You're welcome to play along at home. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games, and everyone has to guess how much the lot is worth in total. Whoever is closest to the actual value will win the round. Everyone has a list, and everyone guesses on each other's list. And at the end, the player who won the most rounds wins the episode. But watch out for our dastardly trio of AI algorithm players who have been doing really well as of late. We have the robot who averages the other guesses for his own. We have the ghost who always guesses 300. And we have the dinosaur who guesses the roughly the MSRP of the games from when they released. So they all work together, and their total combines to try to steal the win from us. So for the hope of humanity, maybe we can beat them this time.
We'll see.
There's only 3 of us.
We'll do our best.
All right, so I'll go ahead and give my list first, just to get it out of the way. for no real reason, I have a list of all PC games. So, oops, all PC. Physical PC games. Who collects those? I don't know. I'll just get right into it. First up, we have Axis and Allies for the PC, loose. These are actually all going to be loose, by the way. Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds Saga. That's it combines the base game and the expansion. Okay. Command and Conquer Yuri's Revenge. Neverwinter Nights Gold. And Commander Keen in Goodbye Galaxy. So 5 games total.
Am I going
all
first?
All for the PC, all loose. You can go first, John.
I'm going to say 125.
125. All right.
I have 75.
75. Okay. Shannon is just about on the money. Off by less than $1.
Woohoo!
The total is $74.06.
Nice.
So I think we can call him the winner at 94 cents off. Axis and Allies, $10.03. Galactic Battlegrounds, $7.24. Command and Conquer, $7.99. Neverwinter Nights, $2.83, and Commander Keen, $45.97. Now, for some reason, if I wanted to be cruel, I could have listed this complete in box. For some reason, price charting has that at $1,717.58.
Oh my gosh!
How many sales
you
though
just
recently?
Never know. You never know with that. These are all
thinking that one might have been a little bit more.
I have owned physically, at least at some point. So I did not keep the box for Commander Keen, though, unfortunately. I think we had it on I don't know, it might have been a bootleg or something. I think we had it on a floppy. But yeah. I remember we had a couple games on floppy disks. I had the original Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't even realize exists. Before the FPS Duke Nukem.
Yep.
When it was a side scroller.
Oh yeah. I do remember that.
So yeah, that's my list. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. My list is a collection of Rare, the developer, games for the Game Boy Advance that are not Donkey Kong.
Okay. All right.
So
you got It's Mr. Pants on there?
I do. That's the first game.
Oh yeah. It's Mr. Pants.
It's Mr. Pants. Complete in box. Game Boy Advance. Second game is Saberwolf for the Game Boy Advance, complete in box. The third game is Banjo Pilot for the Game Boy Advance, complete in box. And the last game is Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance, complete in box.
Okay. I guess I gotta go first, so...
Yeah, you got first, guys.
I am going with $250.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it simple at an even $200.
All right.
And hope it's not right in between us.
Yeah.
So...
$225. Robot wins.
The total of my lot is $453.19.
Okay. Those Game Boy Advance games complete are...
So I think that's the robot.
Tricky.
Got that one. Or the ghost.
Yeah,
sorry,
the ghost,
not the robot.
The ghost gets that one, yeah.
Yep, the ghost.
Darn it.
Okay. So, it's Mr. Pants, complete in box, for the Game Boy Advance, $45.95. Saberwolf, for the Game Boy Advance, complete in box, $131.18.
Okay, well, that was almost my entire guess, right? Or,
yeah.
No, I guess it was $100 more than that. Good portion of it, though.
Banjo Pilot, Game Boy Advance, complete in box, $202. And
that much for Banjo Pilot, huh?
Yeah, I think it's all the box. Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge, complete in box, Game Boy Advance, $70.06.
Yeah, because neither of those Banjo games are that much loose.
I think they're usually around like $30 loose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's difficult to tell in that range.
I want to get it. I had it a long time ago, but I need to get another copy of It's Mr. Pants.
All right. Well, I need one of you guys to win, and just be off by more than $1 so that I can win the tiebreaker. So if you guys could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And we got to hold back the rampage. All right. So I did something just a little bit different. I have 4 games and a comic, which is on price starting.
Okay.
So because we're talking a little bit about Zelda, the games are all have legends in the title. So some different legends. The first one is Castlevania Legends Loose for the Game Boy. Next game is Gauntlet Legends for the Sega Dreamcast Loose. The third game is Legend of Hero Tanma for the TurboGrafx-16 loose. Fourth game is Rayman Legends for the Wii U, complete in box. And the last item is the Legend of Zelda comic number 1. Just so I could still have something Zelda and not make it too easy.
All right.
Okay, it's my turn to guess first.
I think so.
I've got 385.
All right.
I'm going to go 450.
All right. Well, I'm glad you went 450. Because the total is $910.36.
Oh, wow. $910.
$910. Can you guess which one sets it majority of the way there?
Is it Castlevania Legends?
No,
I think it's a Zelda comic,
right?
It's not even the comic, actually. It's actually the TurboGrafx-16 game.
I was kind of wondering how that one would be.
The loose is $595.62. Castlevania Legends loose Game Boy is $162.50.
Yep.
Gauntlet Legends for Sega Dreamcast loose was $34.99. And then Rayman Legends for the Wii U, complete in box, a whopping $9.25. I paid way more than that when it came out. Just saying. And then the comic, Legend of Zelda comic, ungraded, just regular condition, $108. I have that. I have that
it all down except for that one game.
The other 3 games I was right on, I think I did lowball the comic too.
I had the comic right at about $100. I've also looked for it periodically in the last few years. I've never even heard of that TurboGrafx game. So I kind of had $100 on it.
Yeah. TurboGrafx, to me, my knowledge is like most of them are too expensive.
That's the exact,
and too expensive for me is like more than $60 loose. So, the whole range of that is kind of lost on me.
Yep. All right.
Like, so could be 80, could be 300.
I think that means John wins that round, though, right?
Yes. He had the highest guess. Everyone else is very low.
Yeah. So, well, I will win this round on a technicality.
You win by the tiebreaker. Closest guess.
Being very close. It's another win. You guys got to step it up.
This is your season.
Guess so.
You're teaching us how it's done. All right. Well, we will take a. Trivia, right? We have Zelda trivia.
We have Zelda trivia. So, in lieu of pulling a couple of the the trivia video game quiz cards. I just grabbed a couple of, or 4 questions about actually the first 4 2D Zeldas. All right. So the first one is a multiple choice. Which of these is not the name of a dungeon from the original Legend of Zelda? Snake, turtle, lizard, or dragon?
I think it's dragon.
I think it is too. I'm not super familiar with the first game. I've only played it once.
So the actual answer is turtle.
Oh, okay.
There's a turtle rock in
Link to the Past.
Yeah,
Link to
that's
the
what I
Past.
was thinking.
Yeah.
But there is no turtle dungeon within the original Legend of Zelda. All right. Question number 2. How many towns are there in Adventure of Link?
Oh, man. There's got to be at least 9.
That many?
What do you think, Sam?
I was thinking less than 9. Let me revise that guess to 7.
All right, so I was going to accept either 7 or 8, because
Okay.
because there's
the
technically
one secret
8,
town.
except for one is like been destroyed basically, and then you find like where the people went and rebuilt. So I would have accepted 7 or 8, but technically you can go into 8 different towns.
Well, it's 7 because,
but there's really
a town
7
isn't
because,
a town
yes,
if nobody lives
exactly.
there.
That's why I said I would accept either. Well, there's lots of monsters that live there, but they're invisible.
Do they live there, or is that more like a place of work for them?
Yeah, right. So if you remember, the towns are all named the same as the names of the the people that you meet up with, the sages. Jeez, I could not come up with the name.
And there's
sages
always 7 sages
in Ocarina of Time. Yes. All right. Question 3. In A Link to the Past, this is another multiple choice. In Link to the Past, which of these items is found in a dungeon and not in the overworld? Is it the magic hammer, the ice rod, cane of Burna, or magic cape?
The magic hammer, right?
It's found in the dungeon and not in the overworld?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it is the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the first Dark World dungeon.
Yep.
Right?
Because you have to beat the little pegs down.
Yes.
And you can crack the boss's mask with it too.
Although as a kid, I thought you had to use bombs. I don't know why I didn't ever use the hammer.
Yeah.
I was an adult before I realized you could use the hammer to do that. So anyway,
it's classic. They give you the right tool for the job, and you don't realize it.
Yep. All right. Final question. In Link's Awakening, what is the first item in the trading sequence?
Oh gosh. It's not like a seashell or something. I'm trying to remember what there's so many items in that.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you multiple choice if you feel like you need it.
Is it one of the things you get from like the crane game mini game thing?
We might need the multiple choice.
All right, multiple choice. This might get it for you. Dog food, bananas, Yoshi doll, or letter?
I think it's the Yoshi doll.
I was thinking that was like one of the later items in the quest. It might just be the letter. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long.
It is actually.
If I was playing it, I'd probably immediately know where to take it. But yeah.
It is actually the Yoshi doll. You get it in the Crane game. Sam was right.
Sam was right.
You can get it. You can get it like right from the get go because it sits right in the middle of the Crane game.
That's where you get it. And I'm like, there's no. You don't trade anything to play the Crane game. You just pay, like 10 rupees or whatever.
Yep, you get the Yoshi doll and you exchange that. You give it to the little kid. So. In the town. So actually you can do it almost from the beginning of the game. All right. So that's Zelda trivia.
Would have been a lot harder to ask about the trade quest in the Oracle games because it's different in the two.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to mix that up.
Yes.
I played those more recently, and I don't think I could still tell you which. There's too many things to remember.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do it on those. I could probably get pretty far into remembering most of the stuff from Link's Awakening, but I've played that game way more than I've played the Oracle games over the years.
Well, I did well in the second half. I'm happy about that. Yeah, obviously the NES Zeldas I've only had a little time with. So
I don't remember the names.
I feel
of the
a little
dungeons
ashamed if I missed
me.
the one on Link to the Past. I'm surprised Dragon, because that must be like a early in the series weirdness. Because when besides there has The Legend of Zelda ever even used the word dragon?
Well, so that's the thing, is that like they're not necessarily named in game, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like
it's just
it's not like whenever Ocarina of Time where you roll up to the dungeon.
In Breath of the Wild are called dragons.
Yeah,
yes.
That's true.
But that's the only time I could think of.
No, what about the one? No. Because they're
dragon-like enemies, but they're named something else.
Yeah, but Skyward Sword had dragons. There was a dragon in Wind Waker.
I guess the boat, but
like in Skyward Sword, you have the whole thing where you have
the
to
King of Dragons. That's true.
The dragon is even dead, and you have to like basically use the time stone thing nearby to get your song and everything too.
I guess that's more it's more common than I thought.
But
I think it was more that they're not named in game. Like you'd have to look at the manual or a guide or whatever.
Yeah,
sometimes. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. That was a nice. I enjoyed that.
Yes.
Those other trivia cards can be very hit or miss, but I think when you hone in on Zelda, that's something we all know.
We might have to do more of this kind of stuff, like try to base it on whatever we're kind of talking about. I might kind of do that. It might be fun.
We might have to bring back some of the lists. Those are fun. Mike used to send us a lot of those.
Yeah.
He started saving the good material for Here Comes a New Challenger, but maybe I'll have to try my hand at making some. Those are always fun to make too. Spot the fake and all that. All right, well, we will take a short break and come back with our show topic, which is all about The Legend of Zelda, specifically 2D The Legend of Zelda, and why it still matters. So look forward to that, and we'll see you after the break. Well, welcome back, and we are talking all about 2D Zelda, since a new 2D Zelda game just came out last weekend, as of the time we recorded this, Echoes of Wisdom. And, it was kind of a discussion a few times in the past whether, we could expect 2D Zelda. For a long time, new 2D Zelda games tended to only come out on handheld platforms. with the 3D titles kind of being the more flagship entries that came out on Nintendo's home consoles. And with the Switch being what it was and getting 2 3D Zelda games already, of course we got the Link's Awakening remake. But that was a remake, not a brand new installment, even though it did have, I think that did have a little bit of new content.
Yeah, a little bit.
They kind of
dungeon editor thing.
Light dungeon maker, yeah.
Yeah, the dungeon maker. It had the color dungeon, right, from DX as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there might have been a couple of other little small changes.
I mean, there were changes, but in terms of like new levels or something.
Yeah,
not having to use one button for everything.
That's why I passed on it. I'm like, I already have Link's Awakening. It's fine.
It wasn't that choice because originally in that game you could unequip your sword. Like you don't have to have your sword equipped at all times, or your shield.
Yeah, having only 2 items at a time, and sword and shield being 2 of those items is a little bit burdensome. But yeah, it is what it is. We made do, and we had a lot of fun with it back in the day, and still do today. But I think it became sort of a, maybe not a common opinion, but it became, something people were wondering is, well, now are 2D Zelda games obsolete? And at least in terms of, Echoes of Wisdom is different from past games, as, new games always are, at least a little bit different from old games. But that seems to be Nintendo's answer, is no. We still make 2D top-down perspective Legend of Zelda games. So I guess that's just really where I wanted to go with this, was kind of what I see as the strong suits of those 2 different styles, and why I think they both provide an interesting and enjoyable experience. And I think most people will have their preference for one or the other. It does seem like the 3D Zelda games have always got a little bit more attention, a little bit more rave reviews. They tend to be the ones every time one comes out, it's the best Zelda game ever for, 1 or 2 years, and then it's overrated 3 years later, and then it really was really, really good, and it needs a remake immediately 5 years later. But, that's the life cycle of a Legend of Zelda game. Of course, and I think a lot of that does come down to kind of promotion, and, a lot of people, obviously 2D is never really pushing graphics the same way. It's never pushing some of those other things the same way. But I have a couple things I just jotted down. But I guess if that's the main question, what do you guys see as maybe the strong suits of 2D Zelda as opposed to 3D Zelda?
I think that with the 2D Zeldas, you get more of a condensed experience, and I mean that in a positive way, right? Like they tend to be a little more compact. The stories sometimes aren't as they're not story heavy sometimes, although that's not always true, and I actually quite enjoy sometimes even more some of the stories we've got in some of the 2Ds. And I would say that to me, there's always just going to be, for me, it's more adventuresome. I actually like exploring the 2D games a little more than I like exploring the 3D games. I don't know why, but I just find that it's more rewarding for me personally to be exploring the maps, trying to see where I can get around, what I can do, finding hidden caves and everything else. And I know that we got a lot of that, especially with the last couple of 3Ds with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But also those games were actually a callback to the early 2D games as a way of exploring. And if you look at exploring some of the 3D ones, there isn't as much to explore. I mean, Skyward Sword had very little area to explore. Even like Wind Waker, where you could explore the water, large parts of that were just water.
Just water, yeah, just openness.
And so up until Breath of the Wild, there weren't as many things that you could really explore, hidden areas and everything else. Where I feel like the 2D ones, I can't think of too many of them that don't have a sense of being able to kind of explore. So that's my answer anyway.
I think I enjoy the puzzly nature of the 2D Zelda over what you usually get with 3D. And really up until, kind of like what Shannon said, up until Breath of the Wild, the 3D games were less explorative than 2D Zelda. You were kind of given a pretty linear path to go down, and it kind of pointed you in the right direction. Then there's also something about how, I mean, the Switch kind of changes how you play Zelda, because now you can pretty much stop the game at any point in time by putting it to sleep, but there definitely is something to the previous handheld Zelda games that they were made to be played in smaller sessions, so it kind of makes them easier to digest. But now that's not really an issue, because you can just stop playing wherever you want. You don't even have to save. You just put it to sleep and you're good to go. So I think that they're kind of taking advantage of that with the newest game. It doesn't quite feel it doesn't feel the same as A Link Between Worlds, which is the last 2D Zelda we got. It definitely feels like something newer and more vast. Like, just even exploring the little bits of that I've done so far, it feels a lot more encompassing than what Link Between Worlds was doing. So with that being the most direct comparison, it definitely feels like we're in for a ride, like, of what are they going to do next with 2D Zelda, to me. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting.
I'm just really glad that they've decided that 2D Zelda was still going to be relevant, even by changing up the formula a little bit. And it sounds like, from what I've seen, Nintendo kind of saying that they recognize that, just like with Mario, 2D and 3D games are both, a part of the plan, right? There's a reason for both to exist. And so that makes me feel good to hear that, because I mean 2D is always going to be my preference. I mean, I love all Zelda, and I will play through all Zelda games and have a blast in 3D as well. And there's some incredible moments in those 3D games. But 2D is just where it all started for me, and that's always where my heart's going to be for Zelda anyway. So I am glad that they're seeing, like, hey, there's value to still having a 2D game in this franchise.
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. John, you mentioned puzzles, and I think this is one of the first things I said when the first trailer for Echoes of Wisdom came. Seeing that echoes are explaining what echoes are, and that you have all these different objects that you can bring into different environments and interact with, really stood out to me as, like, I think Nintendo gets it, because I think, in a word, that is, I think, the main strong suit of the top-down perspective. Technically, we're talking about camera perspective. The game's not actually two-dimensional. They are 3D models in that sense. And you do jump, so you move in 3 dimensions. But 2D is what most people call it.
Isometric view is really what it is. Yeah.
And I think this really goes, I've said before too, in general, I really have a special focus and appreciation for 2D games and the games that came out of, the era before three-dimensional graphics were standard. Because that zoomed out perspective presents the player with a lot more information. And I think that really affects game design on a pretty fundamental level. You don't
have to worry about camera and camera angles and adjusting the camera constantly.
3D games, the struggle of the camera is real.
How much has to load in?
In a lot of ways, like Ocarina of Time was such a landmark game because of Z targeting, because it solved the problem of camera a lot more effectively than anything else was doing at the time, right? This is before we had 2 analog sticks standard, before DualShock was standard on PlayStation, before we had the N64 controller, which still had a D-pad instead of a second stick. That's always been an issue. And this goes even further. The next further level from that is first person. And look, I understand there's a lot of people who only want first person games, or who, most of what they play is first person games. I often do not enjoy first person perspective games. I'm capable of it, but it's immediately I don't know about this one for me. If that's the first thing I see. And I think what a lot of it does come down to is this, in a more zoomed out perspective, you get to see a lot more of what's around your character. If you are in fact controlling just one character. I mean, I like strategy games for a lot of the same reasons. They're games that put a lot of information in your face right away. And then you can do a lot with that information, right? And when it comes to Zelda, and when it comes to puzzles, whether you're trying to hit switches across a room or push blocks to certain positions or whatever, being able to see the whole room, as you do in most of these 2D games, at a glance, makes that a lot easier, so that you can turn your attention to the actual problem solving. Whereas I think in 3D Zelda, I mean, there are puzzles, obviously, and there are some pretty complex puzzles. But they're, often in a lot of rooms, it boils down to finding the thing, right? Find the switch that you have to shoot with your bow.
Yep.
Right? Because it's not obvious when you walk in the room where it is. Whereas in a 2D game, it's usually you can see the switch, but it's oh, how do I get over here? There's a thing blocking. I have to push this over here and then throw a boomerang at that, and then such and such. So I think that whole dynamic, I think, to me, kind of puts in contrast the difference is 2D games go about setting up puzzles differently. I wouldn't necessarily say that they always are maybe more complex, because one of the other things that I notice is when you think about dungeons in 2D versus 3D, a lot of 2D games, the dungeons are a lot more room by room, where it's clear this room, move to the next one.
Yep.
Most of what you're doing outside of that is just remembering where the locked doors are and going back to them when you find a key.
Yeah.
There's some more complex mapping to think about. Whereas I think the 3D games usually do a bit more where it's kind of a holistic thing, where you're kind of revisiting a central area. There's definitely rooms where you hit the switch, you unlock the door, you beat all the enemies, you unlock the door. But there's a lot of the water temple, where it's you're going back through this central area and you're changing the water level, And now new areas open up, and now you find another route into the next little sub area, and then you kind of circle back.
Yeah.
And 2D games don't usually do as much of that. There's usually a little bit of it, but it's not as prominent.
No, I think like the first one that it's not quite the same, but within Link's Awakening, there's the tower dungeon where you are going up the tower and you have to find like the pillars to break to kind of bring down like a collapse of floor and stuff like that. But that's still not quite the same as like a complete dungeon. Like
there's a couple dungeons in either I think it's in Ages that are more centric to one area and like you're changing.
Yeah.
Changing some
I
things.
think I remember noticing
that
as I played Ages.
But Ages is also known as being a more puzzle-centric game than...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think like in Link's Awakening, the Swamp Palace had some areas where you had to flood some areas so to access other areas. But even that was relatively small comparatively.
Yeah, it did a couple instances of like trying to like remember what was on the floor below so that you could drop down.
Yeah.
Like I know the tower dungeon, the third one, before you get the Dark World, does a bit of that.
Yep, Tower of Hera. Yeah. But you're right. But by and large, it's different. Like because most of the dungeons in 3D are there. Here's one big issue in the dungeon. You know, like one thing you're going to be changing in the whole dungeon to access the end of it or whatever, and you got your little side areas
for that reason. And this is actually maybe a strong suit of the 3D games. Is that I think the actual like dungeons as locales in 3D are a bit more memorable for that reason. Because, you know, I do kind of struggle to remember some of the 2D Zelda dungeons, especially in like the Game Boy games. It's like, nothing like, I mean, like I almost enjoy playing through them more, but it's like, this room could have been in any dungeon in Link's Awakening. I don't necessarily associate it with this dungeon very strongly. Whereas, like, you know,
there's
if
only
something's in, you know, the Forest Temple, I remember that's the Forest Temple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 2D ones, it's stuff like Turtle Rock and like there's a handful of other ones you'll distinctively remember for certain things, but there's a lot that I probably couldn't tell you.
The ice one I remember mostly because of the boss and how you have to, you know, expose the imposter in the light. But
that's
a little bit of that.
That's the Thief's one.
The Thief's Palace. That's the Thief's Palace. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
See, I'm mixing them up. I remember the moment, but I'm like, which one was that?
Yep.
The one other thing, as I think about it, is I do think, and this again, I think is not exclusive just to Zelda, but 2D and 3D games actually kind of go about combat a little bit differently. Zelda games have never been like super focused on combat exclusively. Like it's usually pretty simple in both cases. But because of that wider perspective, in a 2D game, combat is really more about positioning yourself correctly. It's about, you know, attack the enemy from the correct direction and don't be where their attack is, right? And this goes for like a lot of 2D versus 3D games. Because 3D games are a little bit more about reactions. It's not so much... You know, you have an auto target, right? Z targeting's been with us since the first 3D Zelda. And you lock on, and enemies are pretty much always facing you. And you're always facing them as long as you hold down Z. So it's more about when do I, you know, keep my shield up? When do I move in for the attack? When do I sidestep? And like even with Breath of the Wild, like the flurry rush, I think kind of epitomizes that, where it's it's a reward for having a quick reaction to an enemy attack. And this is another thing that I think I've noticed when it comes to my preferences. I don't like when games put too much emphasis on just reaction. I think it's actually, there's just less variables to work with. Like, you can reduce the whole game. You don't have to, but you can reduce the whole game to pretty much, dodge when you see the enemy get ready to attack, and then counter. And you can play the game like that. I actually, when I'm learning about new games, get a little skeptical when I see like, oh, you have a dodge roll and it has invincibility frames. And I'm like, is this going to like reduce the game to this? Like, is this going to be so good that it's like what you do to beat every enemy? And, again, it can be fun to a certain extent, but I think losing track of that, I think that the other approach is actually, to me, more interesting, because then, where you are to begin with and how to move to a safe spot and how to be in position to attack afterwards. Like there's just more things going on at once, actually, than, is the enemy attacking? Am I blocking? Yes, no. If so, then continue blocking. If not, stop attacking and block, or something like that. Even other 3D games I think can balance this a bit better. It's one of the things that I've always appreciated about the Monster Hunter games, is that they do have a pretty strong emphasis on positioning in order to not get hit by things and maximize your offense as well. So games can do it better. And I do think, for what it's worth, the Zelda game, the 3D Zelda game with the most interesting combat is Skyward Sword, because it did something different with the motion controls and with determining, okay, what angle do I cut at? Do I need to cut vertical, horizontal, diagonal?
Yeah.
And I thought the combat encounters in that game, even the bosses, were some of the best in the series for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of variety in how you fight in the 2D Zelda games for the most part. I suppose, I mean, it's, you go around, you face the enemy, and you swing your sword. And hope to connect. I think there are a couple that kind of did it differently. In a way, I guess you could say, just like Skyward Sword kind of introduced the motion mechanics, the DS games, was that Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, because of the touch screen based in the game, it is a little bit different, I guess. You're having to swipe
stylus combat.
Stylus combat.
Well, especially when it comes to things like using the boomerang and aiming it, that works differently.
Right. So there are a few things that kind of mix, did a little differently, mixed up the formula a little bit. And then, of course, the newest 2D Zelda game. So you can use a sword. I think that's not too much of a spoiler to put in there. It's been in the material leading up to the release of the game. But you have different options that the game wants you to play around with using the echoes.
Yeah, that is one thing that I think has changed quite a bit for Echoes of Wisdom.
Using a bed as a weapon.
I haven't found a way to actually use the bed as a weapon. There are some inanimate objects that
you can block some.
But that's not a weapon. That's a defense.
Yeah.
Can you drop it on top of anybody?
Look, it's not the water block. Okay, it's not your answer to everything.
I don't know if you could drop a bed. I've dropped other items, crates, and other things on enemies. I don't know.
I'd imagine a bed would drop.
I don't know if the bed does damage when it lands on things, though. I know, like, the boulder does.
Right.
But that is a good point. Just to move on to Echoes of Wisdom. And one thing I do find interesting about it is, and I wasn't necessarily expecting it first, and I kind of, not even really intentionally, but I kind of went into the game pretty dark. Like, I don't think I even watched the later trailers. I was sold on the game, and that was all I needed to know. Is that it does bring in a lot of elements from Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. As far as things like, there's cooking now. It's smoothies, but, we have cooking. Yeah. We have, even things like the designs of different characters take a lot, like the sea Zoras, ocean Zoras, not the river Zoras. They're back too. But they look like the Zoras from Tears of the Kingdom, So like things like character designs and all of that. The map, even like Faron Wetlands, is on the map. I don't know if you've noticed that yet, but it's there in the southeast. Yes, I always mix up my directions. Southeast corner, like it is on the Breath of the Wild map. And, like the map of Hyrule has been like quasi-constant across a lot of games, but that's like a later addition. There haven't always been a Faron Wetlands, There's usually a Death Mountain or Elden Volcano, in the north, and there's usually Lake Hylia in the southeast, and there's usually a Lost Woods somewhere. Lost Woods moves a lot.
Yeah.
It's always getting lost. Okay, that was a bad joke.
The UI is very Breath of the Wild.
The UI definitely reminds you of that, for good and bad.
Yes.
Yeah, scrolling through all those echoes, it is a bit much.
I mean, having quests is nice, though, even if some of them are, kind of just fetch questy stuff, but just having more interactions with characters.
It is even a bit more open than any traditional Zelda game. Not quite as open as Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom arguably reined that back quite a bit. The main quest is definitely linear there. It's kind of the same deal here. Like you have a main quest line, but you can go almost anywhere on the map immediately if you want to.
Yeah, in fact, there's really nothing that can block you. I mean, some of your early echoes, you can find ways to get around using those to many parts of the map. I've already noticed. Because, I mean, just like the whole idea that, in Breath of the Wild, you can climb, you see a mountain, you can climb it. It might not be easy, but you can do it. And here, I almost think it's the same thing, but instead of mountains, it's like, you see those trees over there that used to block you in every Zelda game, 2D Zelda game? Well, you can get to the top of those and go right over
just
top.
Make some bed stairs.
That's right. You could find ways to get up cliffs,
There were some times early on where, like, I had to get a little bit more, inventive of like, let me, put a trampoline on a bed, and then I use the shrub, which is taller. I get up on the shrub. Now I don't need those anymore, so I can like stack a crate on a shrub to get up the next level.
Yep.
And I'm almost there, so I'll just go swordsman mode so I can jump a little higher. Now I'm there.
Yeah. So it definitely has a feel of a 3D, or the newer 3D Zelda games, right? But in a more 2D form.
Yeah, and that just goes to show that, it is one series. Like, they're definitely taking notes on all the, it's not in some box where it pays no attention to what the other Zelda games are doing. But like I said, from the get-go, I think Nintendo kind of understood like what the strengths of 2D Zelda are. And that's why I think they were able to kind of go in this direction. And also, on the other hand, like, this is part of kind of the new direction for the series, is we see a lot more emphasis on this kind of giving the players lots of tools to just mess around with, kind of creating room for player creativity in a way that the older games did not. They were a bit more linear, a bit more structured. And, you know, in some ways we all missed that, I think. But I do have a lot of fun. And one of the things that did occur to me that Echoes of Wisdom reminds me of in kind of an abstract way is Scribblenauts. I've talked about Scribblenauts a couple times for the DS. Game that I really enjoyed a lot. But it's also a game where it just gives you a lot of options. And there's tons of ways to solve every problem, and some of them are less efficient than others, but part of the fun is just seeing if they work.
Yeah, see what you can get away with.
Yeah, and this is like a much more polished version of that, and also a Zelda game. So it's great.
That's right.
I've already said that this might be my new favorite Zelda game. It's too early to actually say that, but I think it might.
Well, that's high praise.
Yeah. So how far hour-wise are you in, Sam?
I have cleared the game. Definitely has like a kind of second act after Hyrule Castle. There's a rift at Hyrule Castle. I don't know if that's a big spoiler. So when you clear that, there's more of the game happens. So that's like the last thing I did. And I did a little bit of exploration after that because a lot of new quests open up, but I haven't done like another dungeon. So that's the 4th dungeon, I think. If you want to think just in terms of dungeons. So pretty far. But probably halfway. I don't know, maybe like a dozen hours total.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a lot further than I am.
10 hours.
Yeah.
No, less than, maybe almost 10.
I think I'm like maybe an hour and a half.
I put some time in this weekend.
Yeah. I've got a few hours in. I'm in the middle of my second dungeon. The game kind of lets you, after the first dungeon, it kind of gives you 2 different choices for your next dungeon. And so I'm about halfway through a second dungeon, but I've spent so much time just playing around in the map and trying different echoes and like trying to find, like, if I see something, a treasure chest or something, I'm like, oh, I got to stop and try to figure this out. That's right.
Well, and that's the interesting thing too about, in a lot of past games, you might see a treasure chest or something and be like, oh, I don't see a way to get that yet. So I probably have to come back when I have the hook shot or something. And there are some cases of that here, but usually you can find a way.
Yep.
It might not be the easiest or most efficient way, but from pretty early in the game, you probably have everything you need.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just within the first little bit, first handful of echoes. And the way
echoes work, too, typically, there's a lot of this hidden stuff is in little sub-caves. Usually there is an echo nearby that will be a way to solve that mini puzzle.
Yeah.
So that's typically the case, too.
Yep.
So if you need to circle back, you usually don't have to go far before you can circle back. So with that, any closing thoughts on 2D Zelda, 3D Zelda? I think Shannon and I both prefer 2D Zelda. John, do you have a strong preference for one or the other?
I think the more I think about it, I probably used to be more 2D Zelda, but I pretty much kind of like them both the same now. Kind of came from 2D Zelda as from the start, but I think the more I've played 3D Zelda, I've kind of come across that I enjoy that style equally as much.
All right. That's cool. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of thinking about this. I think hopefully you get beyond the level of just, 2D Zelda's great, 3D Zelda stinks, Sometimes
no, they're all great.
We need to do our well, and I think understanding what the difference really is beyond just like, oh, well, I like it, I don't like it. That's fine. But I don't know. I derive a certain amount of satisfaction being able to kind of put a finger on like, this is what I like about it. This is what I maybe like more. Why do I like 2D Zelda more? And understanding that has actually carried over to like being able to tell what kind of games I like, what kind of games I'm going to get the most out of. And that is like, that's a valuable skill.
That's the goal.
We've said it a couple of times. There's so many games out there. You need to kind of figure out what your taste is.
Yeah, you can't play them all.
There's a lot of reward to being open to trying new things too. But I think knowing what you like and knowing what to look for can help a lot, and you just get more enjoyment out of this hobby.
Agreed.
Think so?
All right. So if any of our community members has some thoughts, if you want to let us know why you enjoy 2D Zelda games or why you enjoy 3D Zelda games, what you're doing in Echoes of Wisdom, why Water Block is the most OP Echo in the game because you can just do everything with it. We'd love to chat about that, so don't forget about the Discord and let us know what you think. That's all for this show. So thank you for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you can check us out on Twitter at RetroLogic Games, and you're welcome to jump into our 100% non-toxic Discord community, and the link to that is in the Twitter bio. You can also find everything on our website, retrologic.games. That's all for this show.
Bye now.
Good night.